that commit go through?
Okay, we're on. You want me to load something on screen for your commit?
Yeah, it's. I'm not sure it's actually committed because it keeps on stalling.
Uh-oh.
Don't know why. I'll try again.
Oh, dear.
If you can pull it up and. Oh, shit. Just dropped my iron brew.
34 minutes ago. You just dropped your what?
My iron brew. Without the top on. I'll sort that out later.
Floor snort.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah, okay, so
34 minutes ago, it went up.
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
Pull it up, we'll see if it's the right one.
19, I assume.
Yeah.
No.
No. It's at the top, one level up. It should be in. Could be the gen. Where's it going?
Bad game. What are you doing? This one.
That's the one. Yeah, there you go. Right.
Oh, that's the entities, is it?
Sorry, say again?
That's the entities.
Yeah, well, these are the definitions, some of which are entities, some are not.
Right.
But they are definitions.
This is quite good. Like, it's more than key aspect. It's like necessary conditions for ambient attribution to exist.
Yeah. So what I did with that is, said last time, took a bunch of our more recent recordings and stuck through HAL, created the. Can you list me all the concepts? I think it was called all the concepts, and then took the concepts and then put our last recording through and said, can you describe each concept? I was just doing it one at a time. I was doing a pretty good job of it. I had to edit some of them because it was getting. You could tell where we were getting more vague. Interesting enough.
Yeah.
Because it was starting to go. I don't really know about this. It's like okay, so we'll tighten it up. So there's some tightening to do, but as terms of a workflow, I think it's pretty good because it's captured quite a lot, and then we dunked it into the ERD, and it's like, it's not bad. If we got impact crystals, because I hadn't linked impact crystals to, anything, it was just floating out there. But once we get the definitions right, and I'd love to pursue this to the to a proper version. I think the workflow is get definitions right, create the ERD, use the ERD to create tests in every corner based on the interactions of the different entities. And then with the meat brain, you go through each and say, yeah, that sounds right, that sounds right, that sounds right, no, that's wrong, you've missed this bit, and so on. And if you've missed a bit, it's probably because you need to update the ERD. So that, starting with testing, the bootstrap, well, the way I'm doing it is you bootstrap by starting off saying what you're bootstrapping. You don't start off with a blank sheet of paper, you start off with some kind of rules about, we're talking about the Dreamcatcher, we're not talking about trucking anymore.
Right.
And that cycle seems to be pretty solid, actually. What's this lead backer? What's a lead backer?
I'm just trying to, because you've called it investor, but it isn't an investor, because an investor takes risk that the investor takes risk that they might lose their money. In our platform, funders are taking the risk that they can't use their money somewhere else, but they don't, if the deliverable doesn't arrive, they don't lose their money.
Yes, true. Go up to investment. Maybe this is something that has not been mentioned in the calls that I input into it. So if you go up to the definition of investor. I think it'll be investor or investment. It's further up the top. Oh, I think you just went past it.
Oh, yep.
Actor, investor, there it is.
What are resources?
IP, for example.
That's prior art.
Yep, that would
And
be prior art.
and the key
Not mentioned here.
the key property is that they are surrendering control of whatever they put up upon completion of the thing. But if someone's putting up IP, I mean, are they surrendering the ownership of the IP upon completion of the terms of escrow?
I don't think they're surrendering. Yes, for capital, but maybe IP is not the right thing.
Like you, but you could the use of is not the same as investing. Like that's contributing prior art. You could invest with a piece of intellectual property if you were surrendering some ownership rights upon escrow completion, because then the IP is acting as an asset.
Escrow implies that your escrow is effectively consumed, is transferred. You no longer have control over it, whatever it is, could be anything.
Yeah, it's some ownership.
And now this other person has control over the thing. That
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good spot.
But yeah, it's other forms of value, but it's like transferable value.
Yes. And so the investor is someone who puts up something of value as effectively a prize.
Right, but there are some better words for it, and the reason I was playing name game with GPT is that it's like it's a pre-buyer, like you're buying it when it's not there, and pre-buyer is more accurate, I think.
Well, you're not buying the end product necessarily.
Yeah, you are.
No, you might never use the thing.
But you own it. So I mean, I buy shit I don't use all the time.
A second. So we got consumer, which we were talking about yesterday, which is in the definition. So consumer is the person who uses the thing that's produced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a pre-buyer.
A pre-consumer.
No, they're not necessarily consuming it. But
yeah, you're right.
Is actually quite close.
You pre-bought it, right? Because you could buy something and not use it, like a scalper of a ticket or something.
Yeah, well, pre-buyer.
Pre-order?
Actually,
pre-order?
Pre-order or demander or...
Pre-demand. There was the other thing here was escrower. Escrower is actually more mechanically accurate.
Yeah.
A securer is...
Guardian, custodian, validator, no. Underwriter, no. Endorser, no.
A trust funder.
If you pre-buy something, you're saying this thing hasn't been built yet. You get it with audiobooks and CDs and all that
and
sort of thing.
Kickstarter things, right?
Yeah.
But backer's a good one.
A backer, I like backer.
Funder was our original term, but does it still apply?
Funder doesn't capture the... You could, if it's not happening, you've still got control over your value that you've put in.
Yeah, what captures
it's
that?
like a Kickstarter, isn't it? Maybe
a Kickstarter. That might lead to trouble with that name.
It might.
A Kickstarter.
I don't know. Can you... I don't know. We're not passing off that we're a Kickstarter or anything.
An initiator?
Starter.
What was the one you liked most? You were like, I like
pre-buyer is
pre-buyer.
Close.
Yeah, okay. Well, why don't we run with that until we get a better name? But because like it's not right to call it an investor, because an investor is at risk of losing their money.
Okay. Yes. Right. I'm going to and I've learned this from the last few days, for the tape. How, when you listen to this, we're changing the name of investor to pre-buyer, and we need to have an additional definition of escrow, and the inherent part of escrow is that you are putting up funds as a prize that can be called down on, but if it's the thing that you're putting against is never done, that's still your cash. But there is a movement where you lose control over whatever you've escrowed to the person once it's done, to the actor once it's done. I'm finding it easier to actually talk to the tape, and then you get quite good results.
Okay, so that's investor taken care of. I like the notion of describing in detail what it does, because naming it is, like, so long as we agree on what the description is, then it makes renaming very easy.
Yeah. And also, having longer descriptors means that it's easier to ask how to do a fallacy check, an ambiguity check, a gap check.
Yeah.
Because it's not having to guess anything.
Yeah. There's nothing here that talks about the price setting.
In what context, price setting?
Well, the price setting machine is it's a thing, like
So this is.
We haven't actually put it here. Well, is impact assessment? Impact assessment is price setting, right? Yeah, it is. Right, it must be.
Is it exactly the same, or is it?
It's not exactly the same. It's a precursor to it. So the impact assessment is what you do, and then a very simple derivative of that is, hey, this is what the price should be for you.
Here's what the fair price is. And another thing that I noticed that's missed out is that we can track what you've actually paid versus what you.
Yeah. That's right. Because impact, impact is the instance, and price is calculated based on the history, which can include whether you've been magnanimous or stingy in the past in your interactions with the platform.
Right. So I think there is a price generator saying, here's what we think is a fair price.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. You could even haggle with it, I guess. You could go,
that's the point, though. Like that's a great story to have, is a story of a price haggle, or the story of an attribution haggle. Another great one is a story of a extra dimension being added for impact, and so you write in those stories and show how the system updates for that. That's good for our testing and understanding, and also the demonstration of the platform.
So, is there a price assessment which leads into impact assessment?
No, impact comes first, and then price assessment after.
Yes, it does. Sorry. Yes, you're right. But the price assessment is a different thing, isn't it? So it's like, we think you should pay this, and you go, well, I'm going to pay half that.
Yeah.
But then the fact that you paid half, you're now negative in terms of whatever we want, karma, whatever it is we want to do.
Yeah, that's right. So that was another sort of an entity that's being tracked as deviation or dissonance, disagreement, something like that. It's the difference between what the price setter said and what you had paid. You're totally okay to run with that, but it's just simply saying, if it's trying to state it as a fact. It's like, as best we know how to figure out, with all the king's horses and all the king's GPUs, you look like you owe this much. That's it. You don't have to pay it. But
and the beautiful thing is the impact assessment is updated with new information. So if you take this thing, which they said it was worth $100 at that point to you,
Yeah.
and you paid $10, and
Yeah.
actually future information turns out is worth 1,000.
Yeah.
Then your karma, your
Yeah,
deficit,
you're
your
extra,
thing
you're extra
is,
bad.
is constantly going down and down and down
Yeah.
and down. It's like, hey, you should
Yeah,
be,
so there's a range of work to be done there about making sure that people don't fall down a hole too far that they lose hope. Like you should never be.
well, it's not a contract. They're not. This is not a debt. This
Nah, but
is
the
a
trouble is
social
that
debt. Really.
price,
No.
depending on how much accrual we do or how much weight we lend to past behavior as to setting the present price, that can
Then it'll have
actually,
an impact on future.
yeah,
Yes,
which can be depressing, and you don't want to do that. So there's a balance in there somewhere, but I'm not sure what it is exactly.
We don't have to work out, but what we need to do is identify it. So,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, and one of the easiest ways to do it is just make it a very short window, like a week or something, and it's like that's the week that your karma lasts. Like if you earned a bunch through ambient attribution, while during the same week you were underpaying a lot, then it will internally net you out.
yeah.
That
And
sounds
also,
reasonable.
if we look at karma, sometimes you may have overpaid or paid the full
Yeah,
price.
exactly. And
And actually, it's worth less.
I know, and sometimes the price setting can be wrong, and so
Yeah.
those things get overturned all the time. So
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Right, shall we? What would be good is just to glance an eye over top to bottom. The definitions are at the top. So contribution. It kept on adding in process. I'm not sure process is part of this.
yep,
And system.
no process. Well, because you can have like a patented process, like a process is a valuable thing.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's not recorded through mechanisms like state changes. It is recorded through the mechanism of state change.
Yeah.
There is no other recording system.
Yep, I'll update that. That's fine.
Contributions are a key factor in determining attribution. It should also be like the other one is impact. So I don't know how that works in there.
Well, we've got definition of impact.
But like, what are the other key factors?
I think we need to tighten that up as well. So contributions are the determining factor.
No, because impact and contributions is how you calculate attribution.
Okay.
Right.
So we could tighten up. Yes, you're right. We could tighten up by saying contributions along with impact determine attribution.
No, contributions plus impact plus karma is attribution. Or does karma come after attribution?
I think karma comes after.
Right. So attribution plus karma equals dispersal.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. Okay.
Okay. So contributor, that's just. I've not done that for similar kind of contributor type things, but it did it for this first one. It seemed unnecessary.
It needs to be more powerful than play a direct role in the creation. They are the only role that can create, modify, or enhance the product or process. Whatever you define as the thing being worked on, you should replicate it throughout. In fact, you may want to make an entity that represents it, of that which can be improved. So,
yes, I was thinking about that.
Product or process should also be the system product or process. Like, you should at least be consistent.
We could do with one name, so we can collapse all that down.
Yeah.
We can't use artifact, obviously, because we're using that.
It's not. No, artifact is not that. It's technology, maybe. It's the thing that prior art was when it was being made.
Yeah.
It's the present tense of prior art. Could it be the
some thesaurus for artifact? There's got to be something similar because it's a thing, isn't it? Well, it's also a process, though. I'll recall something that's also, it could be a product or a process.
artifact number one? Low.
Deliverable, no. Initiative. Construct.
Construct.
That could be it. Asset.
Asset's a good one.
Yeah, I like asset.
But is a service an asset? No.
No, I think it might be.
No.
No, it could be an asset to, a company
Output.
by carrying out a process.
Output's nice and nondescript. Produce. The produce.
That's quite close to product.
Yeah, but it's the produce. The valuable outcome is the produce.
Ooh, outcome.
Ooh, outcome. Yeah, but yeah. What about gosh, I had it.
Well, I've got dogs coming in. Give me 2 seconds to get rid of the dogs. Be
Okay.
right back.
All right.
Oh, I'll try and stay jacked in.
Okay.
Boys, out. Out. Good boys. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that worked.
The innovation. That is what they're doing, right? They're doing innovation.
The innovation covers a process or a product.
Or a system
service.
or a service, yeah.
System.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So we use innovation to define, to roll together product, service, process.
Right. Contributors play a direct role in the creation, modification, or enhancement of the innovation.
Right. Got it. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Good.
This can be condensed. You don't need to relist what the types of contribution are. You already have it here. You should refer to contribution to fill in that piece.
Okay. And again, for the tape, that is the line. Their contributions can include activities such as coding, project management, mentoring. That needs to come out of contributor and reference contribution where the definition is given. Okay.
This would become any state change would become any modification of an innovation that alters its current condition, or that should be current state.
Yes. Although that's slightly cyclic, but yes. Yeah.
Cyclic's what you want because you want to end up with a closed definition system.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So
now, consumer was going to be changed into something, right?
No, it was changed. That was buyer, and now it's consumer.
Now it's consumer. Okay. Yep. What you could do is chuck all this into GPT and ask it for different collections of names that all make sense. You know, like if you modify the descriptions and then just ask it to rename everything all at once.
dedupe effectively and, well, condense.
Yeah, or
Refer.
give you like a bunch of for each one, give you a bunch of names that make sense given the surrounding context.
Yeah, can try that. Oh, shit.
What?
Battery again.
Dude, why are you always flat?
No, it's because I was getting the dogs out and unplugged myself.
Oh no.
That's all right.
Effort.
Something a bit cyberpunk about sticking a USB-C port into your skull.
Effort. Effort is a funny one. Why is effort here?
Because it came out of our conversation. Now, work.
We never talk about effort. We only talk about contribution. We don't care what it cost you.
I think it's trying to cover services.
That should not be a thing. Effort is a myth. Like, no one cares how hard you tried.
Yes. Well, effort, if you count it as watts, for example, then yeah, it's a measurable thing. But it's not, try hard and fail and you get prizes for all. But there is take. Right, coding has a state change, and servers can have a state change. Mentoring, project management, networking, where you're bringing people in. All these things should be recognized. I'm not entirely sure what you'd call that, but there is a distinct thing where there's work being carried out that helps move the project on. That is not necessarily reflected in a state change, although it will contribute to the state change. Maybe the state change would never have happened without being introduced to this guy, and that introduction has value.
That introduction needs to be a state change. You cannot have us appraise things that aren't captured in a state change.
So
it sounds like you're trying to define effort as this thing that doesn't get recorded in a state change. It just
no, it needs to be recorded. Otherwise, we can't do anything with it, right?
Right.
Yeah, it could be a log of events, like
that's state change.
This guy and this guy,
Yeah. But why is effort here? It feels like it does not belong at all.
Yeah. Okay. So forget effort for a second, but one. I think this section is trying to capture is
right.
those more ephemeral inputs, like I got my bed at 2 a.m. and phoned you saying like you really should get out of town.
Yeah, but it says this thing. It just lists the same thing. It reads almost the same as the contribution section, and it's considered a form of contribution. This is basically a repetition of the contribution section.
Okay, so how would you?
I would delete it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Please finish that. But how would you record logging a key introduction? It's like, hey, you guys really should talk to these guys. And then suddenly,
well, you've got a model of 3 actors, and one is performing the introduces action.
Okay, so that would be a log. So that would be logged somewhere as a state change. The assertion that this happened.
It's not so much about this happened. It's about saying that there's 3 actors in the system that we've modeled, and then one actor says that these 2 should connect by way of that's a definite action in the system that has causes some behavior, like it's a function call to say introduce these 2. Like that's a function that you call because you want it to. It's a lever that you want to happen.
Exactly. So that's logged as a state change, even though there's no code that changed, and we don't know what the value of that. it might be completely irrelevant or it might be game changing.
Mm.
But we still
Right.
need to log it somewhere. So it is a state change.
Yeah.
So what's the name for that kind of, well, take an introduction.
Yeah.
You're not changing code. You're not raising an issue.
Yeah.
You're not doing a commit. What are you doing by doing the introduction?
Networking.
Yeah, but there's got to be a generic name for that because it could be an introduction or it could be I don't know, me phoning up, some random guy saying, keep going, yeah, he's getting really tired and it's like, keep going with this one. That could
Yeah.
be still valuable
Cheerleading.
or something. But there's
Cheerleading's
a
a
generic
profession.
term for that kind of slightly ephemeral interaction. That's not.
Oh, you
captured
mean
in
that
the-
it's because it's indirect. That's what you're looking for, right?
That's right. Yeah. But nevertheless, could be absolutely pivotal. I think you're right. We can log it as a state change as just part of.
Can be promotion.
It's almost like support, project support. It's I'll find a name, but if we have a placeholder for that,
Yeah.
like a jib, right? Okay, so jib is a logged, potentially ephemeral interaction that leads to a better outcome and helps push the project
Yeah,
on.
but
Something
all it is a dimension of contribution that begins to be measured or considered.
Yeah. You're right. Actually, it's just another dimension.
It's
Isn't
just another dimension,
it?
dude.
We log it and then we decide whether or how to.
Yeah, but I don't like this idea of logging, like logging stuff to just like, start date 731. Like it should be geared towards actions that happen in the system. Like an intro is a like a definitive function that we can implement within Artifact, within the application, within the Dreamcatcher application. We can make a specific intro function that does things, not logs things, does things. And so if we are actually designing the API of the system to be tailored to all of these types of concepts and dimensions, and so that when we have a contribution dimension that we are struggling to capture or record, what we really should be doing is providing artifact level tooling to allow you to do that type of work specifically. And that is what causes it to be recorded, is the fact that we gave you a tool that did it or did parts of that activity.
That makes sense. And we can increase because we have as many dimensions as we want.
Yeah, but it's really like it's really like there should be no usage of just raw recording. What there should be is, I don't have a tool to do introductions. Oh, okay, let me make that for you. I don't have a tool to offer coaching or support or a shoulder to cry on. I need a tool that helps me identify who needs comfort and helps me deliver it in an automated form, if that's even a thing.
Yes, I agree, and we don't need a complete list of those.
Yeah, we should always be trying to capture everything in the system, not by way of unverifiable statements, but by way of behaviors or doing or tooling.
Actions.
Yeah, actions. Actions should be the thing that we're trying to convert it all to.
Well, how about that as a word? Instead of effort, an action is supported by something direct in Artifact that may or may not contribute.
I really don't think that it helps you any to be trying to talk about those things that aren't captured by contribution, you'll get tangled up in something that's like of diminishing value for round one, and it's like a lot of talking time and figuring out time for a thing that we can hit in pass two or whatever. We don't need to hit every single form.
Yeah, that's true. Can I though say, if we were to call it an action, and then define it as an action that is supported by a function artifact, and an action can be considered a contribution, that'll be enough for now, just as a placeholder.
Yep.
Okay, where were we?
So that's gone.
Effort is gone, and there's a new section needed under action, definition of an action. Okay.
So the thing I want to try and work into this definitions document somehow is the fact that what an investor or a pre-buyer, what they stake against the completion of innovation, which we now called it, should be the same as creation of previous things. We need to be able to make it so that what you make as a contributor, you can then take that and then stake it.
By stake the ownership of it?
Well, and that's what investors are doing, or pre-buyers are doing. They're staking an asset where they lock it against an outcome to guarantee that it's available if that outcome was met within the time frame.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to...
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Just trying to find a way that word that we use to describe what they stake, the value, the assets, the something, should be somehow related to what it is that contributors are building or producing.
I quite like stake itself as a...
like stakers. So instead of an investor, it's a staker.
Yeah, because you're staking against something.
That is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
That is exactly what you're doing. You've staked something of value.
Yeah, against a future event.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Investor goes to staker. Sorry.
So output, you would rename that as whatever we decided that was. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, we covered that. I can't remember how, but yeah. Services also roll up into the previous conversation about actions.
Yeah.
It's superfluous.
Yeah.
Or duplication.
Yeah. Okay, we've been over this one.
Yep. Now stuck. And he's tightened up. It might not actually inevitably mean that you're unable to move forward. It just means that there's a function that's not available.
Yeah. The I can't do that, Dave event.
Yeah.
Again, this needs to be tied back to that first discussion about contribution.
Impact, yes. Yeah, and make sure it's all coherent. So refers to a measurable effect with the list of new definitions we've got. Impact is a key factor in determining the value and attribution. Yeah, this is where I've got a bit of shade actually on impact and impact crystals.
Yeah, because it is shady. Yeah, like the number of dimensions, they're actually, we genuinely don't know that many.
No.
It sounds like there should be a near infinite number of them, but you try and name them, and all I've got is money and carbon.
Brownie points with your wife, or but yeah, you're right. It's difficult to see without getting
Yeah. And then there's like social karma or peace.
Yeah.
Charity.
You should simply define them and then note that additional dimensions can be added.
Yeah, that's really the key. It's that they can be added and you can interpret them any way you like as well.
It picked up the normalization and the ratio thing pretty well.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Not impossibly, definitely consumers, because consuming can itself have an impact, particularly.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Actually, all the weasel words we should do a skim through, because
A weasel word skim.
Words in there.
And then a internal definition thing, like everything here should point to something else. Like it should be complete. Yes. I think is the term.
And self-referential in terms of definitions of things that are non-trivial. We don't have to define what a project is, for example, but we definitely need to define what an impact is. Platform admin, that's us.
This needs to indicate that it's during the bootstrap phase.
It was got in future. This may devolve to the committee.
It will devolve. Like that's the whole point.
That's the kind of corollary to bootstrap.
I don't like that it's called auditor. We should name it specifically as a specific AI system. Like there's the impact system, there's the price setting system, and then there's the attributing system.
Yes, so that is currently AI auditor is a bit of a roll up, isn't it? So we split that down into the individual bots or combinations.
Compound the systems like
compound.
Like impact GPT, attribution GPT, and where's my money GPT are three different dedicated different things. And that definitely, those systems feel definitely like candidates for fine tuning, because you would want to be heavily influencing the style and the shape of their outputs. Like they're not fun to argue with. They're like, this is what's happening.
Well, that's the leap of faith we're asking in the actor to do. Getting involved in this is you have to have trust in the suite of bots run the thing. And that's all you have to do.
We can have guarantees of the openness and the update cycle of those systems, but it would be useful to be able to show that you can have multiple competing versions of the system and it still works. Like if we can have two versions where like one version is also pulling in data from the other one and including it in how it attributes. Like
Yeah.
they don't have to be distinct. One can always be trying to absorb the other one, because the goal of being ultimately fair is all encompassing.
Right. So you could have, well, say in the simple case, you have two running in parallel. They're both sharing the same information, and you're just comparing. Well, the decision made here was this. Decision
Yeah,
made there
what
was
I'd
that.
what I'd really hope it came down to was that there was some minor discrepancies in how attribution was calculated between the two systems, but for the most part they're the same, and then people can just choose which one they prefer, and it
Yeah.
only differs in
Well,
this very small point.
we talked about that certainly around attribution years ago about whether you wanted everything to go to the Pope or everything to go
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hungry children or your pocket.
Mm. This makes no sense, this line.
Which line? NFTs can be tradable and act as dimensions in the impact crystal. Oh yeah, I picked up on this. I did raise an eyebrow. So we were talking about previously. Every contribution has an associated NFT.
No, I don't. It's a what's the word for it? It's a fractional NFT. It's the thing that got made is an NFT. The contributions are shares in it or token portions of it.
Oh, okay. Um,
The thing is
that's
the NFT, because it's not like you don't make a unique NFT just because I introduced these two people in this broader project of making a fusion reactor. The NFT is the fusion reactor, and then I got a mention or a portion of it for my.
right. But the contraindication to that is I'm a metallurgist and I've made a new alloy for this fusion reactor, which also works very well in electric cars.
Right, but that's an example of where the task itself would have been a subtask or a child task. Like you wouldn't make a fusion reactor as one lump, but you would represent it as one NFT, and then it's made of or contributed to by all these little
Right
subparts.
now, this speaks to something I was actually really
But
hoping to get into the meat of. So further down, it talks about a library of functions that can be Lego bricks used in different products, um, and the contributions to that Lego brick follows. So follows that use of the Lego brick. So I've created this pipe, works in a fusion reactor, also works in a car. Completely different projects, but that Lego brick also has the contributions back. So it's that reuse and dedupe piece.
right,
Now, um, NFTs are just a way of saying here's the record of a thing that's
right,
happened, and that thing is good enough that it can be reused and perhaps reused and forked. Maybe the pipe in the fusion reactor is too big, you make it smaller, very useful in a car, but you should still get contribution for your original work.
yeah,
So I think that's where the NFTs were when we're talking about them, because everything that you do could also be reused, and sometimes in a product that is completely different from the one that you actually were working on. So it's not the case that it's just the end product's the NFT. It's every contribution, every Lego brick.
no, no, no. So that's where there's a demarcation between being a thing and not being a thing. Like you can't say that every state change is an NFT because that makes NFTs invaluable or bereft of value because of the sheer number. An
Sure.
NFT needs to represent some sort of a milestone output that's been reached. some unit of utility. It can be small, or it should be small.
It could be that we could be saying that okay, there's a piece of code here. Say, I don't know, an unzip algo that's been built for this larger system, but it's really useful elsewhere. Now, everything contributing to that unzip algo being available should be as part of the impact if it's taken out and used somewhere else.
Yeah.
If that impact algo is slightly shitty but still useful, that is indicated by the fact that someone else has tried to use it and maybe they're improving it. And so then they're kind of building on to that algo and improving that algo, and maybe it gets shifted back into the first product. So
just because you don't make a collection of state changes an NFT at first doesn't mean you can't make them one later if it becomes apparent that they really are something that warrants being their own entity.
Excuse me a sec. Just silencing it. Yeah, so you could, and this comes down to the library. So the library are the Lego bricks. So
yeah, there's nothing here about reuse and deduplication, and there's very little here about prior art.
Yeah, there's nothing in prior art, which I'll add in, but the library is the reuse of chunks of code for a jitter or JAP. And so you call that down, and by the very fact that a just-in-time app is dynamic, then there's a certain amount that is owed because of its use, and then it's effectively discarded, or you don't call it down from the library anymore.
Right.
So that thing that's in the library of components that are available for JAPs, I think that should be an NFT, even though perhaps it's not the end product it was originally built for.
Say that last sentence again, sorry?
What I think is the library is the kind of reusable Lego bricks that can be used in JIT apps, for example. That's the thing that the NFT is there, even though that reusable piece was originally built for a much larger system.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to do there is you're trying to put a hard rule on the boundary of an NFT. I don't think you should do that. I think that an NFT is just the thing that makes it an NFT is when the escrow is released. Like, escrow release definitely means an NFT got created. But you can have a zero funded project too. It just means that it's when the project authors declare it as done, it's done. When it gets reused somehow, that can cause it to be made an NFT, I think.
It's almost like on publication, isn't it? So
yeah, it's like publishing npm modules. Like, you can literally publish anything, but it'll cost you some gas to do so. That's all. Some events indicate strong. Like, if you were to put a filter on all the NFTs that got made, you'd be like, show me all the ones that resulted in over $200 worth of escrow changing hands, and then straight away you're going to get a quality bar.
Yeah.
Then you can say things like, show me all the ones that got reused by at least 5 independent projects. It's another quality bar. So it's not a rule that every state change is an NFT. I think it's largely it's dealer's choice when an NFT gets made, but the majority of the utility NFTs will have some escrow changing hands, and they'll have other signatures like reuse count.
Yeah, it's not necessarily tied to escrow, but say if a bunch of guys got together and built something, it's almost like the event that creates the NFT is making it available for reuse. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, so this is
yeah,
the thing.
yeah, yep. Okay,
We don't have a name for that thing, by the way, which is one of the
what
points.
thing?
Um,
We'd call them
so
helps.
um, is help still the right term? Because I
No,
think
it's not.
we've
We
been
moved on
going in
from
and
that.
out of helps.
Stux is a good one. Stux is a great name, but
Stucks are the unsolved version of something that could be published once it's solved.
yeah. So I think it's just solutions. Stux have solutions, and
I hate that name, but
well,
yeah.
tell me a better one.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, because it's the word that makes sense. I mean, it's what it is.
Solutions. Every time I see solutions, I just think of white van man. You know, like some plumber with you've got water solutions limited on the side. Okay, well, let's see. Let me do a really quick chat. See what it comes up with.
Okay,
Approaches, strategies, methods, answers, resolutions.
I'll leave you to play that game.
Yeah, we need. You see what I'm saying? Though we need a name for the Lego brick, or a brick. We could even call it a brick for now.
You need a description for it first, and then after that you can plug in the name. So this one seems fine, except it shouldn't refer to long thread because that would call in an extra definition.
So that's steps just for the recording. Yeah, okay. How would we rewrite that then? Apps are dynamically created applications deployed precisely when they are needed, based on the content of.
It needs to deployed precisely when they are needed. I just wipe this sentence out. I just wipe this bit out.
No, because then you're leaving needed kind of dangling. It's like, well, by who or when or
just if you wipe out the highlighted stuff
by the consumer at point of use.
Yeah, they are needed by they are deployed based on the needs of the consumer at the time of use because it's the real time nature that's important. And that way you've tied in who consumes them. It's the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
The library should be talking about the just-in-time app library is what the definition is about.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Stuck market feels like it needs a little bit more. Oh, no, because you've got stucks defined higher up, haven't you? So that's fine. This doesn't belong here at all. This is not even. This is like just a.
No, that was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get rid of simplified management. Yep, that's nothing. Enhanced accountability. No, these are
features or benefits. These are not
fair and transparent distribution.
This is not key aspects. Is like that's not. This is like benefits. This is not entities or composition.
Yeah, you notice that this one's different from all the other ones. It's because it has a different question. And it turned out this. And it's like, okay, so what I'll do is I'll turn that into what are the interactions between the entities that you already know about.
So there's no notion of karma here, and there's no notion of the price setting system. There's no notion of deduplication.
Yeah.
The process of deduplication.
Being a function of finding the dedupe candidates and then a merge and possible conflicts in order to create something new, but keeping in the contribution that got you there, including the work that took to actually dedupe,
Yep.
which means being non-trivial.
Yep. So that's dedupe. Dedupe is very much similar to search within the so there's a just-in-time app store, but there's also the whatever you call it, a brick, but a solution, or that needs to be searchable as well. And dedupe is the same as search in many ways.
It's one aspect of the process of dedupe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dedupe candidates need to be searched or need to be discovered. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of, we got too many edits now to go any deeper than that, and without my mind sort of collapsing, like I've got too many things in RAM, I guess. But
That's cool.
but you know, those are
close to the bottom.
Yeah. Those are pretty.
Yeah.
I think what we can see most importantly is that there is a way to make a completely closed model definition. There's no other actions or entities outside the system that we are going to consider.
Yes. And that is a good target, actually, when it's only entirely self-referential and self-consistent.
Yeah. It's like, I really like that it's so obvious when something like effort pops up and you're like, what? That doesn't belong. Or like, you know, simplified management, you're like, that's not part of that. Like, it is possible to, we're nearly there at defining all of the aspects of this model, and then it comes down to just figuring out how to make the prompts that just do close enough versions.
Yeah, because now we know what does what and with whom. Some of them are AIs, some of them are users, and if it's a user, what are you doing? So there's functions and it's kind of it, really.
Kind of it, man. It's actually very simple. I regret saying that, but yeah.
This felt like swimming down river.
Yeah, right.
It's like there's no major head scratchers and so on. And remember, most of this was actually generated from our transcripts and notes and the website and so on.
Okay, so what's next?
Well, the only other thing, just for a bit of play, is to look at the ERD based on. Now we know this is wrong, but the thing I'd like to point out is
these ERDs.
It's like when I saw this, it actually throws up as many questions, and you think, well, first time, for example, impact there's no impact crystal. And it's like, why is there no impact crystal? I was like, oh shit, because I didn't link in the definition about what the relationship is between an impact and an impact crystal.
Oh, so the ERD is really the self-referential check that all of your entities are closed.
Yeah, because you can't have a hanging entity. By definition, it's an entity relationship diagram. So
right, if it's got no relationship, then it's like,
yeah, it's like, well, who ordered that? What's that doing? So again, this is wrong, but this was like 5 minutes throwing it in and saying, hey, here's the definitions, and then boom, and then immediately you can say, oh shit, I need to tighten up that definition, don't I?
Cool. Okay, so where would Impact GPT sit here?
As an AI.
So that's AI auditor.
Well, we've talked about AI auditor.
You'd explode that out, into 3, and then you would assess impact, and you'd also have a relationship to contribution,
Yep.
and then you'd pass that into karma, and then have a dispersal event. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
obviously there's lines that are kind of what the fluff, but that makes it clear that if you get those definitions down and make sure that you steer the diagram by way of definitions, you're gonna get the thing, and you're gonna
Yeah.
get it soon.
Because it's quite hard to consume, as you're saying, your RAM's full. Quite hard to consume a big line or page of definitions. Stick
Yeah,
into an ERD, and it's like, hey, dude, where's the impact crystal? It's not
it
there.
makes it really obvious, eh?
Yeah.
Right, okay, that's cool. That's really
Anyway,
cool.
that's it from me.
All right,
And
sweet.
got a whole bunch of edits. I'll just do another cycle and another cycle as long as it
You
takes
get in
about,
there,
I would
dude. You're
say.
getting there.
Yeah,
You're really getting there.
it's getting tight. It's getting tighter.
And
Even from yesterday when we were talking.
so what happens next? So eventually we'll get to the point where we can go we turn this thing on and we're like we start asking attribution related questions, right? Like
Yeah, when the and estimates. I feel we're only a handful of days off to having an attribution bot. Probably a big single bot until we get everyone wired up. That actually does something like.
So you come in and you do some stuff and you're like, show me the hottest stocks today, or who in my social graph has some stocks that they valued at more than $50.
And that, given my history, I can complete.
Right.
For example.
Yeah. Right. So you'd interface with it using HAL, but you'd just be throwing up these widgets on the side that were made to enable rapid browsing of or analyzing of the stuck network.
Yeah, it's like I can do prompt engineering for restaurants. Anyone got some stocks that are vaguely related to that? And it's like, yeah, we've got one for a hot dog stand.
Right. And then when I'm doing stuff like anytime I'm trying to do things like a truck broke down, then this would generate a stuck for the CRM. Doesn't have the ability to handle trucks breaking down. It creates a stuck, and then that goes out into the wider network where everyone else is using their HAL to. Yeah, okay. All right, I can sort of see that working.
Now, the interesting thing is, probably not for now, but this example shows it. Maybe, the API market also goes into the world in that I've got a truck fixing shop and I'm close by.
Yeah.
Now, that's not an API, but that is something that, could be flagged in saying, if there's something like this, let me know.
Right, because that starts to touch on the marketplace of services and assets where you're like, I have a broken truck, I need a truck fix. And then someone else is like, well, I got a spare truck today. And they could be just down the road, but they'd never know.
Yeah.
They'd never know.
The next obvious thing is kind of offer, counter offer. So say if I've got a truck that's broken down and I'm going to escrow $100 to anyone who can fix this. Truck shop goes, no, that's $200. At the moment, the truck shop would just have to ignore it. Or could do it in order to gain other dimensions on future impact crystals. So maybe inside of the stock market, there's some kind of toing and froing. I'll do it for $200, and the guy with the broken truck saying, actually, if I don't get this truck fixed, it's going to cost me $1,000. So
Right, yeah.
okay.
Because there's been some prior art that's done of an impact forecast where it says this is what the damage is going to be, so therefore the value to you is X.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it knows that if you don't do this, then because of the contracts and all the people you're not going to be able to serve,
Yeah.
you're going to have to, I don't know, give them some kind of cash back. It's going to cost you $1,000. This guy's saying fix it for 200, and you best go to 100. And this guy saying, I'll do it for 200. And it's like, yeah, okay. So we're getting into nuances of that kind of marketplace. We don't need to do that now. But again, back to our conversations of 4 or 5 days ago. Does this change anything in Artifact? No.
It doesn't, know. But it also doesn't change anything in the HAL interface. It's still, you can still access everything from this type of interface.
Yeah.
Which is the main sort of thing. Like, this is what ties it all together. Like, you can actually, yeah, you can do everything here, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I have several things. How much time you got left?
As much as you want.
All right,
well,
so
up to about an hour. So not as much as you want.
as much as... Okay, so the issue that I'm having is that the testing framework is fine and dandy if, like, I got to here, right, where you've got the test file and then it breaks it out into test cases and then it runs all that and it does the assessment and all that, and that part works great. But where I've been tripping over myself is how to run a collection of test files and then what is a test runner. And so the solution I came up with feels a bit convoluted, but I'm not sure how to simplify it any further, and it feels almost like it's an ERD style application unto itself, which was not where I wanted to go. So just very quickly from the top, you got the actor, the home directory of the actor. You're in a thread, you're in a long thread, and you do something that triggers your test interaction. It initially makes sure that there's a tests branch coming off the actor where all the tests running of the system will occur. Then the long thread starts a new test controller, which is its own branch that this thread is going to use to interact with, to run threads and view the results of. The controller then makes one branch for each file that it's going to run, and then each file makes a branch for each case it's going to run, keeping in mind that it needs to be a branch because it needs to run the test in an isolated environment, and branches is our mechanism of doing that. Each file creates a TPS report, which is capable of logging the ongoing summary status. So when you've got like 100 variations and you've done 25 of them, you'll be able to read those intermediate results to get a rough idea of the success or fail of your tests. The controller can stop and restart these things. It can add different file patterns. The main thread here never waits for a run to finish. It just says go, and then you come back and you can carry on doing whatever you want because these tests might take a while. And then you can watch the project through a jitter that gets thrown up in the state board that's specialized in, that's sort of bound to this controller, and you can start to interact with the controller in some ways, like stop everything, is just a button that sends an action into the controller branch and says halt, restart, change the file patterns that you want, all those kinds of things.
Okay, so first question, and forgive my ignorance, can you go over again what the red tests does?
Tests is a branch that is formed from the actor branch that serves as the mount point of all the testing runs in the actor's repository.
Okay, so what you got there, and this is probably just my brain, tests is a state change, whereas controller is doing something. Tests in this case is not doing anything.
Well,
it's a change of state.
It really is just it's not doing a hell of a lot. It's really just holding reference to all of the controllers that would have been spawned so that you can answer the question, hey, how many test controllers have I got running right now? And you'd go here, look up all the controllers, look up the active ones that are currently burning tokens, and then you'd say you've got these controllers and this is their token burn rate, blah, blah, blah.
Isn't that Backchat's job to do that?
No, that's because it's a domain specific knowledge. It's knowledge about tests.
So that's a switchboard then.
Switchboard would have, well, there would be a you don't talk in this thread, you talk over here. You would have a collection of agents that deal with tests. One of them knows how to interrogate the test branch to get the results out. So that's actually a function call, not an AI chat.
Right.
The agent
function call results in a state change. So yeah, it feels inherently different from, a controller. The controller is.
Yeah, this is definitely not this is very different from a controller. This is almost inert, but it has to. I felt it had to be there because otherwise you can't have the controllers spawning off the actor directly. Otherwise it felt very messy, because then when you're in the actor home directory and you're like, list all my child branches, you'd have this huge jumble of shit where you've got all the controllers and all the other stuff. But instead, if you're like, oh, you've got some tests, you've got some threads, and you've got some whatever other apps we consider need to be built into the base system, and then to get more information, you list the children of the tests branch.
So it's kind of a dumb concierge kind of thing.
Like a folder, like a directory.
Right.
Like, your life would suck without directories, but the directory itself is often fairly meaningless.
Yeah. Okay. And you got 3 controllers.
Yeah.
Are those for 3 different apps?
They could be, but they might not be as well. It might have just been that the idea was that as an actor, you might have this thread open on your laptop, another thread open on your browser, something else open on your home computer, whatever. You don't want to all be hitting the same controller because you want to interact with and twiddle around and try things. You want to be editing agent files and triggering a rerun as you're editing the prompt. You want that to be isolated from whatever you're doing on your other computer where you're maybe testing a totally different batch of agents.
Or you could be testing exactly the same agent if you're a bit, screwed in the head and want to run 2 tabs.
Yeah, or you could run them under different conditions. Like, you might have set this one to run using only Claude as the assessor, or this one was running with 4.0, things like that. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. And then the files are, exploded by synthetic.
Well, so the files, there's an agent that specializes in running a test file. So, like, you give it a file, and it breaks it up into test cases, and then it runs each test case independently. And then those test cases are what is generating the variations based on what it was told to do by the controller. So the controller was like, here's your file and I want n variations. And then the file was like, here's your test case, I want n variations. The TPS report is being generated the whole time. If you want to see the TPS report, then the thread would have a stateboard viewer that knew how to walk the Git branches to show you the TPS reports, but they're just in those branches. That's all.
Okay, all right. Well, that's helpful. And so your question was, it feels a bit convoluted.
It feels like an app. That's my problem.
Oh yeah, probably is. Maybe there's a better way of doing.
It's almost like it needs an ERD, because I struggled with the name of things. I'm like, is it a test case? Is it a test file? Is it a test controller? Like, it really messed me up. I was like, and what is this? Is this test? Is this the test manager? Like, I was like, oh my goodness, amount of names. But I think I settled on a bunch of names, and it'd be nice if I had an ERD bot that could do it for me.
We do have an ERD bot. If you get some definitions, I can tell you. The ERD for this. Well, actually, let's do it now, I guess. I don't know if you fancy it, or if there's other things to get onto.
I really do fancy it, but I just struggled on manually and got to a suitable position where I can write code again. So I sort of overcame my hurdle through suffering, but it would be nice once I get it up and running to go back and get a nice neat ERD out of it.
It seems very ERDable.
Yeah. So, and this was sort of my attempt at a sequence diagram where you're like, well, here's the long thread branch, and in the long thread branch you're like, oh, I want to talk about some tests, and it just goes off to the actor, makes sure that test branch is around, basically sets up your environment. And then later I'm like, hey, I want to start the tests, I want to start everything that starts with star.testmd, and then it will create the controller file, which basically logs that, I'm making a new controller, runs the controller in its new branch, and then that's what carries the files across. So the files get carried from this branch over to the controller so that you can modify the agents without messing with any other parts of the system. And then once the controller's up and running, it then calls the file runners to kick off an isolation. They do their thing. The TPS reports are generated, etc., etc. So that's what the delay is. It's a bit of a...
it doesn't sound incoherent. It sounds quite tricky to keep in your head all at once. But
yes, it's tricky without an ERD.
Yeah, but I don't see any issues with this, other than the fact that it's an inherently complex thing.
All right, that's good. That's reassuring to know. Thank you for that. I'll come back to you when I'm ready to neaten it up. I just want to get it working because I'm very frustrated that I don't have it. Okay, so yeah, but it's all good. It's just I just hit a bit of a wall with figuring out how all this fat together. Plus, I coughed up a lung, and that was not helpful to coding. Okay, so that's cool. You can do it more if it heals. Okay, so I'll carry on with that. It sounds like you don't see any major objections. I'll just get it going, and then I'll see what you think about it. Cool. There. Yeah. All right. I in the process of doing this, I made you an extra feature, which is that because I needed to store the definition of what.
Oh, it's the expansion thing that you sent over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really cool.
The reason that came about is because
yeah, I can use that a lot because it immediately opens up, for example, with inheritance of definitions and therefore scrutiny of coherence. just falls out the bottom.
It,
You got that?
I had to write this definition of what the structure of a test file was, and I needed it in multiple places. Like I needed it in the agent that talks about tests. So I needed it in this agent that chats with the user about the tests and answers things like how many tests are in this file and all that. But then I also needed it in the file runners because they need to know about the format too. And that's why I was like, oh bugger, I need this expansion thing. So I pulled that.
Yeah, no, it's wildly useful. And
Right.
well, for example, even in preferences, I would like you to talk to me in using Irish idioms.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, all your boss. So, and it's like, okay, so if we have your HAL, the HAL's got definitions and requirements, some of which are inherited, some of which are just for HAL. Maybe the tone is passed all the way down. Who knows? But
Right.
yeah, it's hugely valuable.
Right. Okay. And then today was the day that I got outcoded by GPT, actually. Because I made that feature very quickly, with the help of GPT, I might add. And then I asked it to review the code because I thought the code was good. And then it come back and it was like, oh, you have an infinite recursion
Really?
opportunity. Because if you recursively link markdown
Good God.
files. I know. I was
How
like,
did it
oh my
work that
God.
out without running the code? It
It
didn't run the
just,
code.
no, it
It
just
just looked at the
understood.
code.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty
That's
baller.
crazy, right? That's intelligent. I didn't think
Yeah.
of that, but that's valid because then I recreated the situation that it suggested and I crashed my development machine with a Stack Overflow error because it had just loaded itself too many times. Yeah.
That's really
So I
interesting.
was like, that's cool.
It's getting
And
a lot better in the background. I know they've not done a major release since many.
yeah,
Well, they've got
since
major out
4.0.
now, but yeah, I've not. It's not popped up major yet.
No,
I'm
and
sure it will
then this
eventually.
other thing was like the regex, like if it pointed out that if I put a special character in the name of the link, I can cause the regex that does the replacement to go haywire because it goes looking for the string that represents the link. So if I put special characters in there, I can do funky stuff. So
Or like SQL hacking or SQL
yeah,
injection.
regex. You can do like
Yeah.
regex DDoS and stuff. Like you can make the regex
What was?
utility
Can you?
just go
What
forever.
was the? What was your prompt to get it to do this? What did you give it?
That's it.
What bugs? And that's it.
That's it, dude.
Zero shot.
Yep.
Ah,
Now
okay.
the subtle point I want to touch on here is that it was because the functions that I was asking about were entirely this long. They had a dedicated purpose, and it just seems like it'd be crazy not to give ourselves the ability to make code using chat for small things. And like a tool feels like a small thing, and so it's tempting to say, well, maybe generating small bits of code isn't something we should run away from. But like, because I like this, I can imagine this experience I just had being provided to a user in a managed form within HAL. And HAL is
Well,
just,
this is a little bit. We talked about this. I think yesterday, maybe the day before, when I was saying, what if you are a researcher and you had a piece of code that does something really quite niche, um, and you want to refer it by just a straight name, and maybe other people want to use it.
right.
I mean, we're in the system now. It's a short hop from there saying if that code didn't exist, I can use system to actually create it. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know how to create it,
Yeah.
or
And
maybe I don't
if
know how to
we
prompt it.
studied well how to make the structure of first you make the tests, then you do the code review on varying temperatures. Then like if we gave it a pattern or a set of steps to follow, we should be able to get very good
Well,
quality
how would you
output.
define your prompt? How would you redefine your prompt instead of code? How would you redefine it as a bunch of tests? Just verbally, I would say. But in this situation,
That would have been this prompt. This was how I generated the code. Was I just said what I wanted, and
right?
then it generated those functions, which I
And
sort
this
of
is
cherry
in
picked.
Dumbot as well.
Yeah, this
So this
is
is just
for Aurora, and then I
yeah,
noticed that I noticed that if you put it in a fenced code block, then I need you to skip the link. And then I sort of because I was chatting about my requirements, I can imagine a bot that would go through and be able to update a set of NL tests or expectations, a requirements document.
right. So let me think this through because I think there really is something really valuable here. So you started off. You go back up to the top. So you're saying was your first. How can I get? So you could easily rename that or reword that or have it reworded as a requirement.
Right.
I need to get all the links out of Markdown doc, etc., etc. Okay, so there's your first one. Okay,
Yeah.
and it goes, okay, and then it gives you a version which would that first version fail?
It failed because it didn't. It 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 replaced all links, but sometimes if I want to include links in the prompt without having the links being fulfilled, I need to put them in some sort of an escape sequence. Like,
Right. So you could rename this as another test, another assertion of
yeah,
something that has to happen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then it looks like that was basically all we had to do. And then
This was it. And then it moved on. I used this and then it moved on to, this is completely independent.
yeah.
I've taken to just wildly switching topics now, and it does really well.
Well, can we do a test here? Because I'm
What
really,
test?
really curious. If you get a new chat up, recreate the same thing, or try to get the same code by writing tests, because we can easily give you a test helper
Yeah. That
that
can I leave you to
reframes.
do that? That sounds like a massive
Yeah.
rabbit hole.
Yeah. Nice.
Um,
Um,
because I just think that now that we're talking about running each user's actor repo as a sub-hosting thing on Deno, where it would have its own database, its own URL, its own everything, sub-hosting also lets us run code in
right.
an isolated environment on the server. So
Which is
we
the Docker
can,
thing we were talking about the other day. Yeah.
yeah, but it's so long as it's these little nuggets that GPT knows how to do. See, the issue with code in general is that it rapidly becomes too complex because you pull in this library and that library and
Yeah.
whereas in Artifact the functions are very, very um, isolated, because they just take a single JSON object in and they give a single JSON object back. They don't like call this WebSocket, take a picture with his webcam, and then call this AI API. They simply take JSON in, JSON out. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Dead simple. And so that is what makes me think that this code generation might be plausible to do, even for us. Like, I would have liked to use chat to make this rather than copy paste between VS Code.
Yeah. And also, if you could instantiate, I want to create a bit of code bot,
Yeah,
and you say, the thing you said at the top, and it
right.
rewords it as a test.
Yeah, yeah. So a system that we've tested to extract out structure from your chats and guide you through how to
Right.
chat
And
correctly to get a
right.
good
And so,
outcome.
and then it's like, okay, so I'll run this code, or I'll look at this code and go, it doesn't do this. Okay. When
Yeah,
you say it doesn't do this, I'm going to reword that as a test saying it must do
right, right.
that.
And then ultimately you get to the point where you're like, it sort of works, but I'm not quite sure. Can you make that a stuck and I'll chuck $50 against it?
Yeah.
Now, whichever person comes in to look at that has a much deeper understanding of what you're trying to do because they saw the history and they saw the requirements dogs.
Yeah. Or the really smart ones have written a bot to
Yeah,
take in natural language description, extract the tests,
right.
generate the code, run the code, look at the failures, iterate, and there it is. And they're still in their bed.
Yeah.
Lift a finger.
So
Yeah. I think
you can
that's
also do that in a social setting where you can have, like, you and I could both be sitting there hitting the same chat and then
yeah,
pointing out different types of shortcoming or issue that
yeah.
we see and chatting with ourselves, and then the bot is busy modifying what the requirements are to
Oh,
suit.
that'd be sweet. That'd be
Yeah.
sweet.
And so even
Uh,
you could sit down with a client and be like, well, how about this now? And they're like, yeah, no, what about, like, I'd never sit down with a client and write code because that would just be a death warrant or boring
yeah,
as shit for hours and hours. But with
yeah,
this, you're like, tell me about that function you wanted, blah, 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 blah. And you can start generating outcomes and output.
yeah. That's something we could do with the tools we've got at the moment,
I
right?
know, right?
So, because we've got a shared environment, share a
Yeah,
URL, we've got voice in, and you could even indicate if you're coming from a different IP, it's a different speaker, and so bear both in mind. And then we could be saying, no, make that button orange, move it up, and then it'll just re-render it. Or,
or
you can
whatever,
improve
really.
this data analysis is obviously is usually incomplete or incoherent because you haven't told it the right thing, and so you have something like HAL 3 is a bit pedantic, I know, but really understands what you're trying to do and asks you awkward questions. And then when you're in that mode, all we need is Jitter as the sandbox saying, here's what you're building.
Yeah.
Is this what you meant? And I was like, oh, okay, now your turn. Okay. I'm going to mess with it. I think it should be upside down.
Yeah, okay.
That seems very possible.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
That we shouldn't lose that. Where can you log that in your log of
I have
interesting things?
I log everything there. It is logged.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really worth looking at
yep.
because what allow is even quite complex. Say if you had a set data source and you wanted to, I don't know, do a fast Fourier transform on it, but Dreamcatcher doesn't have a fast Fourier transform piece of
Yeah, a piece
software.
of and
Then you just say
a tool that
describe
can
it.
do that.
Right, and then you go, right, I want a fast Fourier transform. It's like, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Okay. Well, what it meant was,
No, and then you publish. Once you're done and it's tested, then you publish.
yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So next
Perfect.
topic is I found quite by accident a WebRTC platform called LiveKit that would let us very cheaply and very effectively take the HAL microphone input, make it be a very low latency group call with up to 100 concurrent participants, and then at the same time be transcribing that in using DeepGram, because I'd be able to get each individual speaker stream. I could get very good perfect diarization because it's identifies the speaker because it's only got the audio stream
instead of from one recording.
yeah, and then that stream gets recorded in Artifact as a contribution, and then the deepgram thing is, so you and I would have that running. There'd be a chat running on screen here where the real-time streaming transcription was occurring, and then the bots were responding in whichever way they were set up to.
It's got a demo of this. This looks nice.
Inside of Deepgram, have you seen?
Deepgram? No, sorry.
You haven't seen Deepgram?
No, I've not played with it. No.
Okay, this is great. This thing is great. Let me show you. This does. Didn't I show you? You can this does great diarization very quickly of speech to text. So that's number one. But number two is
somewhere. Mission.
Hello there. I am testing the real-time transcription of this service, and I'd like to point out that it is doing a transcription for what it thinks the answer is in light gray, and then it is, once it's more sure, filling in the sentence in solid. So what we'd be doing is we'd be having our conversation in the meeting. You and I would be hearing the voices like we are right now, but it would be going through HAL, and the transcriptions of each person would be popping up on screen too, which is being immediately interpreted by a network of bots, but it's also recorded for contribution purposes. It also helps when the network breaks up and I'm like, I didn't hear that. But, because, I can look at what the transcription was. I'm like, oh, yeah, got it. And so that's sort of, minor but useful. And then hopefully we can get the bots to do our work based on our conversations, so that in the state, you're seeing things like user stories being added, tests and requirements for bits of code being added, and it's a much more natural way to talk. It's like peer programming of the AI, because you and I work better because we're able to talk to each other, and as humans we know that someone else understands what we're doing, but the AI can be very assistive by listening in and doing all the work that should have happened based on what we do. So
right, and presumably because the text would be streaming into HAL, if we go rabbit hole, HAL, what were we talking about 5 minutes ago?
Right, and you can just that's right.
Oh, it just picked up.
It picked up your voice. Yeah, because it hears my headset in the.
I see.
Yeah. Okay, so that's real cool. I think that's the thing I want to. As soon as I get a moment, I'll include that instead of the transcription we're doing at the moment. And then if there's a bit of time later and you think it's a good thing, maybe we can do a demo with this thing hooked up. It looks super easy. It looks like half a day.
So what's the distinction between Deepgram and LiveKit then?
LiveKit does the streaming the voice between us, whereas Deepgram does the transcription.
Right, okay.
So this is like a telephony grade network, but Deepgram is just all they care about is transcribing. They don't care about audio quality or anything like that.
Got it.
So what I'd imagine happening is I'd make us a little app on each headset that we have here that would run in the background and would just be streaming straight up to Artifact. And then because it's like, well, you're already using video conferencing software, so we don't need to play the audio on the other side, but it would be getting piped into Deepgram and transcribed as we go, so that you and I could be having a meeting right here, but in the side, the transcriptions are being populated based on what we're saying.
Got it.
Further to that, I found this service, Telnix, that LiveKit recommended, that offers SIP trunks globally along with numbers that can integrate with LiveKit, so that, for example, I could connect these things together so that HAL, just by coming to HAL, I can make a telephone call out using that voice transcription to the POTS network and have the transcription of the other side be streaming back in too. For a small fee, like a couple of bucks a month, I can also give each user on Artifact a real telephone number that people can dial in, and the same thing happens. Now, for
Very nice.
for the CRM guys, why that's important is that if we can replace currently their phone calls come in on a SIP trunk. If we can replace these guys look like pretty serious quality grade things. So if we could replace the CRM guys' phone system with HAL, and it was like basically as simple as, well, just ask HAL to provision a phone number and you're now currently live. And then the customers are ringing in and it's popping up on HAL, and then the HAL microphone, the HAL browser is how the customer service agents are taking the call audio and speaking out back to the customer. Plus it's all being transcribed, and the CRM is using things like caller ID information to shortlist the possible customers. It's transcribing and trying to figure out what it should do in the CRM, just based on what the customer's saying, so that maybe the agent doesn't need to do much. And now the agent can be remote because all they need is a good quality internet connection and a connection to HAL, and they're active.
That is pretty sweet.
And so for not a lot of effort, like I reckon I can integrate that LiveKit in half a day, and I reckon I could do that SIP integration in 1 day. And then
it's wiring, isn't it? It's just wiring.
Yeah, I know. And then like I can't even begin to say how much effort this would be without this service, right? But given that I can just take those things, plug them in, and then be like, now everyone on Artifact or everyone on Dreamcatch and now has the option to purchase arbitrarily many real phone numbers in your local, wherever you want to be, and people can dial in and say stuff. You know, like that's suddenly seems like a powerful
really nice
feature.
It's powerful, but also not to denigrate it, but it's a real in-your-face, user value. And the reason I say it, and don't want to denigrate it, I usually call it nif naff and trivia. Easy to do, but really kind of obvious and useful, as opposed to the really hard stuff to do that's not obvious.
Right, that people don't notice, like uptime. But yeah, that's a straightforward one. And then we'd get even more of a bill coming our way, because now the phone system bill would now be ours. Plus, there's a good reason to integrate it, because you get all this data stuff coming in too. So that's cool.
That is very cool.
What else did I have? And then I had this was the widget I wanted to really show you.
Oh, I had a look at that. The little animated arrowy thingy
Yeah, yeah.
widget. This
And
one.
so we should be able to make a very simple way of explaining attribution using widgets like this. But more importantly, I wanted to talk to you about the company structure that we would need for running the Dreamcatcher using credit cards. So, for example, when a consumer pays some money to the Dreamcatcher, we would disperse it out to all the contributors and pre-buyers that that
go through event, go through and back to the
yeah,
show and all that.
this would be this would be a dispersal event, like a buyer pays for some usage and then we disperse it, but it would be delayed because the buyer would need to buy credit, put credit in the platform like $50, and then we'd be doing micro attribution, but as it accumulates, the buyer can elect to pay out their money because they're like, okay, my balance is like $23 now. I want to get that out, and then we do that through Stripe. And so the structure I want to put to you is that we have so Stripe does incorporation in Delaware, and we could run a zero profit gateway company that simply had all the banking relationships so that you could run in 3 different modes, each one requiring a different level of hurdles to get to. The first is simply paying us to run their AI computation and their storage and their compute. So that's just artifact fees. The second one is purchasing usage of just-in-time apps. And the third one, the more possibly contentious, is escrow. So putting in $1,000 credit in the platform, escrowing it against a task to be done. Once the task is done, paying out the pre-buying out to the contributors that did it, and then ongoing paying out the buying out to through attribution. So those models can be run in Stripe. The extra piece we would make is we'd make a separate entity that represented our holdings of NFTs that we had built up from running through one of those gateways, keeping in mind that the protocol itself should be able to run with, like, someone else should be able to set up a gateway that's exactly the same, and it's really just consumer choice as to which one you choose. They should both be able to communicate through the platform. It's just that, you got, when you see $100, you need at least one. And when you see $100 on the platform, it's always tagged to the gateway that it came from. So it's like $100 from the original gateway or $100 from gateway number 2, because you can't. It's a bit difficult to transfer funds between gateways, but it can be done. But it's just that you got to have one, and we got to keep a company. The gateway has to be separate from our accrual of contribution.
That makes sense.
And then what we would do is we would publicly list our holding company that was holding the NFTs that we built up over time, including some of the foundational elements of the Dreamcatcher itself. and then we'd be like, okay, we're doing a raise. The gateway is not part of that raise. That's independent. The Dreamcatcher network and protocol is all open source, and you can plug bits and pieces into it, so that's out of reach. And we want to raise some capital to do this more.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, and then it's gonna look a bit like that kind of a payment arrangement. The new money comes in from the consumers, and then it goes partly to us, partly to the operation of the gateway, partly to the things like the generation of the AI, all the contribution. Anyway, I don't know why I struggle to just say simply attribution, because not like you don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's the payment flow.
It seems I quite like that diagram actually.
It's cool, right?
It's like I don't know. It's like a particle accelerator.
Or beam splitter. Yeah, and so Stripe also allows withdrawal using crypto. They've got a beta program there, so we can do that. They offer identity services. So I think I don't know, man. I'm just I feel like we could run everything we've spoken about for ambient attribution, jitters, the hosting platform sitting on Deno, all of that. We could give it a billing front end that just ran through Stripe for now, and like we'll start with just you pay us for the compute, and then we'll build up to you pay to get some work done.
Yeah.
And finally we'll finish with we'll pay you something for work you got done through this platform that we resold.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we, as in you and my equity, becomes just one of these sellers on the platform. And we build up our attribution records, our contribution records, and accrue our attribution into one of these entities, which is just a company that can be registered kind of anywhere we like. We list that publicly to be able to raise funds and influence people. And then that's the ecosystem lit.
And if we've got someone who wants to buy us an app that doesn't exist, that needs to be built and then run on Dreamcatcher, then you're at the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And presumably they go to this same kind of portal.
Yep.
As they put money in. And
yep.
see Stripe, and everyone, well, not everyone knows Stripe, but Stripe as well.
Everyone, yeah, very well regarded. And basically the Stripe window would just deal with all that complicated UI stuff for them, and they could know that it's actually Stripe managing their payment. We're just sort of sitting there being told you got this much money or not.
Yeah, that works.
That's all good, right? Like that's
it's all good. I mean, it seems obvious.
Yeah. It seems smackingly obvious, eh?
Yeah.
And so,
not much to say about it, man. It's like,
you're like, let's just do that. So then you'd be like, in HAL, you'd say, I want to add $300 to my balance. And what would happen there is the Stripe flow would kick in. You'd walk through making the payment, and you come back and you'd be like, HAL would say, yep, that's done. And you could ask later, what is my balance? Mm-hmm. It would know what you're talking about. You'd say, I want to pre-buy $1,000 of this thing, and it would be like, insufficient funds. Hey, you don't have enough money for that. You need to do this. You need to pay more money. Blah blah blah. And then you're accessing all of that through this same HAL interface.
Yes, I do. And if you want to pre-buy $1,000 of this thing, you've got $1,100. That $1,000 is now escrowed.
Right, and then
if you said the second time, I want to pre-buy this thing number 2 for $1,000, it's like, no, you've only got $100.
Yeah,
you've actually got 1,100, but you don't have access.
Right, so you're like, okay, here's your options. You can pull it off this one within the next X days, or you can do this and that. Yeah. And then you could say predict my future earnings from that escrow thing, and then it would walk you through the steps of like, well, here's the assumptions. We think it is going to be
assumptions.
Yeah,
it's like, you said only 10 people are going to use it. How about if 1 million people use it?
Yeah,
There you go.
And then it's like, we'll just have to check that what securities law obligations we have there, but so long as the revenue can be said, well, it's a decentralized AI system that decides how much you get paid. So, who you're going to send the subpoena to, really. And if that's...
Also, I don't think it entirely... No, yeah, it's the security thing. I don't think it entirely falls inside of securities.
I think it... Well, yeah, but it would be if I'm like, if I say this, list all my NFTs for sale immediately, please. Now, am I selling a security at that point? That's kind of the thing that we need to be sure about. I suspect that if we engineer the system using the AI auditors, then it's not.
Yeah.
But even if it is going to be, then we can just turn on the participatory requirements and be like, you can only buy if you're accredited, or if you participated in enough of these NFTs that are in the neighborhood to say, well, you participated in the project, and so therefore you're in the know, you're an insider.
Right, which is, all that information available.
Yeah.
Through contribution. Okay.
Yeah. So that was that.
Nice.
That's all, I think.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to get back to taking this recording and getting the next version tightened up for tomorrow. Very keen to get through an ERT and then into a test cycle. That would be very cool.
There was another thing I was working on with state chart generation. I found a schema for X state, so we can actually use the guaranteed schema adherence to generate guaranteed schema compliant state machines. But what I suspect is that if we scope down the rules of the state machine even more and say things like a nested state cannot be aware of any states outside of it, then we can scope the bot to only work on that thing. And so if we make the inputs and the outputs very clear into that black box, we then make the bot work only on that area, which results in way fewer errors than if you're trying to make it do a multi-level.
Yeah, sure. You just do that by giving it the perimeter, as it were.
Yeah, the perimeter. And so, I think that we can actually do that for workflows. So instead of having a mermaid diagram in text format that we try to make a bot execute and walk around, we might as well just use the X state schema, because it's the same as asking for mermaid schema. and then we just sort of,
Hmm.
yeah, at least then we'll have some visualizers in X state as well. Like, so yeah. Anyway, it just, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Okay. So that's
Right.
me. That's the whole lot.
Okay. And that's me as well, and I need to go as well.
Okay, sweet. Alrighty. I'll see you later.
Right, so we've got a clear target for tomorrow. Continues to seem we're cooking on gas here, but it will go wrong at some point.
Maybe it won't. Maybe we're here, buddy. Well, why not?
It's going to go wrong.
Why not?
It would never work. All right.
All right.
Give you all. All right. See you tomorrow.
I'll see you later.
See you.
Bye.